In 2024 fantasy drafts, I'm here to tell you that the running back hate has gone way too far. On this channel, we've been notoriously lower on running backs, fading running backs, everything against running backs. But this year, the landscape has changed. Sites like Underdog Fantasy have brought awareness to the running back dead zone, the running back position being overvalued, the importance of getting your wide receivers early, the importance of getting an elite quarterback, an elite tight end. In fact, just last year, a 0 RB team won Best Ball Mania 4. However, last year there was a major blip on the radar for this anti-running back, propaganda that we've all been kind of spouting the last couple of years, because last year was the first year that the running back dead zone hit at a 50% rate since the year 2015, as you guys can see on this chart. Before last year, you were basically hitting on dead zone running backs at like a 33% rate. 3 of every 9 or 10 running backs you were taking in the running back dead zone were missing and causing you a lot of anguish, and you probably should have just taken a wide receiver, a quarterback, or a tight end instead. But last year, like I said, they hit at a 50% clip. And it's not because the dead zone is no longer a thing. It's that the running back prices have gotten dramatically less than they've been in years past, because the types of profiles that we're getting in the dead zone are no longer those prototypical dead zone running backs, the Mike Davises of years past, Myles Gaskin of years past. And we're all doing it, right? All people who are staunch running back truthers are starting to come around. In my home league last year, there was 9 people running hero and 0 RBs. And I never thought that day would come. But by taking these running backs later, we're lowering the bar for how good they need to be. To achieve a successful fantasy pick as a second-round running back, you need to be a lot better than achieving a successful fantasy pick as a 5th or a 6th-round running back. A 15-point-per-game season, when you get him at 64th overall, sounds pretty damn good relative to if he was your first-round pick or your early second-round pick. So when we look at the running backs from the dead zone that hit at an above-average win rate, last year, that was guys like Alvin Kamara, Rachaad White, Travis Etienne, James Cook, James Conner, DeAndre Swift, Joe Mixon, David Montgomery, and Isiah Pacheco. A lot of these guys had pretty projectable roles heading into the season. We had, younger running backs, Rachaad White, Etienne, James Cook, DeAndre Swift, Isiah Pacheco, heading into pretty good offenses. We had even these veteran running backs, Joe Mixon, David Montgomery, Alvin Kamara, who was suspended, James Conner. All of these guys had proven track records of production. None of them had really fallen off totally from a play standpoint. A lot of them were in pretty good offenses as well. So I think when we look at the running back landscape this year, particularly on a site like Underdog, where the wide receivers are pushed so far up the board, and even in home leagues, I'll break down kind of the way that the home league ADP has changed as well. We look at the back-end RB1s, the high-end RB2s, the guys that RB9 to RB15 in ADP. When we look back just a couple of years ago, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, you were having to take the RB9 in ADP at, a top 15 overall redraft pick in home leagues. And then the RB15 was off the board really before the end of the 3rd round. They were early 3rd round picks, mid 3rd round type of picks. And then the last 2 years, in 2023, the RB9 came off the board at 26th overall. So we were starting to get them into the 3rd round. And then the RB15 came off the board in the 40s. And then this year, it's gotten even worse. The RB9 is not coming off the board until 43 overall. The RB15 coming off the board at 57 overall. Since 2019, 16 of the 34 running backs drafted as RB9 to RB15 in ADP have hit an above average win rate. So we're looking at an area of the draft, RB9 to RB15, where the projections are still strong. It's not like we're drafting, the 30th best running back in the NFL. We're still getting pretty strong projections from RB9 to RB15. All the superstars, of course, are off the board, but we're getting some solid RB1 projections there. And like I said, just a couple of years ago, you were having to spend a 2nd round pick, an early 3rd round pick on those players. And now you're getting them in the 4th, the 5th, sometimes even the 6th or the 7th round. And it's just basically because the wide receiver, quarterback, and tight end thirst and fading running backs has officially gone too far. The dead zone no longer is rounds 3 to 7. It's rounds 5 to 9. And because it's a 2-round discount of where it used to be, the risk level is now mitigated to some degree. You can get a 13 to 15 point per game season season in round 8, and it doesn't kill you. In fact, it's quite helpful because you can build out a strong roster prior to that, whereas before, that type of projection was something you had to spend a 3rd or a 4th round pick on. And I'll take one guy as an example this year. If you look at Aaron Jones, who's currently RB19 in ADP right now on Underdog Fantasy, going over to the Minnesota Vikings, we would have, projected the volume, projected a decent workload, and he would have been, let's say, the 35th player off the board, a 3-4 turn pick in 2019 to 2022 when the ADP was much less cautious of pushing running backs off the board. And now he's going in round 8. So you get a big time discount on a guy with projectable volume who's been talented in the past. This is why it's important to stack your board when you're doing a fantasy draft and to see how, if you're going to take a running back, how that running back projects to the wide receivers, to the quarterbacks, and to the tight ends going around them. Because now, in the 4th, 5th round, where you're taking James Cook or Rachaad White, guys with projectable workloads, you're not stacking them up versus Chris Olave or Jalen Waddle or anybody that's a stud wide receiver, because those guys are long gone. They've been going off the board for 2 rounds already. Now you're stacking them up against, Marquise Brown and Jaden Reed and George Pickens, potentially, like a Christian Kirk. It's not anywhere near the type of wide receiver you were passing on before. So there are some great profiles going on in what was formerly known as the RB Deadzone. I might have to come up with a name for this area of the draft because it's not the Deadzone anymore. Rounds 3 to 5 specifically are very ripe with running back talent on the board in Underdog fantasy drafts right now. There's a lot of drafts that I've started wide receiver, say Garrett Wilson and A.J. Brown, or maybe I've started CeeDee Lamb and Mike Evans, and in rounds 3 and rounds 4, I can get myself solidified RB1, RB2 type of projections in Underdog drafts right now. So I'll talk about some of these guys here. Isiah Pacheco, currently going off the board, RB11 in ADP, 47th overall on Underdog, currently going off the board, 38th overall on Home League. So again, Underdog ADP is going to fade running back more than your typical Home League would, but even in Home Leagues, 38th overall is something that I would consider a pretty good discount for where a projection like Isiah Pacheco would have been going in years past. Think about the profile we have here. We have a 3rd-year running back who is in his prime still, has a lot of talent, breakaway speed, just had a top 15 season in points per game last year, in an offense that's due for a bounce back. We think that the Kansas City Chiefs offense is going to be a lot better than they were last year. Mahomes had career lows across the board in yards, in touchdowns, and all of those things. And weeks 4 through the Super Bowl, Isiah Pacheco averaged 16.4 PPR points per game. Again, a projection of 16.4 PPR points per game would have gotten him into the late 1st round, early 2nd round of years past. Carved out 49 targets last year, increased his route participation from like 30% up to 50% down the stretch of the season. And when we think about schematically what his projection looks like this year, they have the speed of Xavier Worthy, the speed of Marquise Brown, Travis Kelce still doing his thing over the middle of the field, Rashee Rice, once he gets off of the presumed suspension we're all expecting, this offense looks a lot better, and they have speed to be able to stretch the field, open up the box, lighten the boxes for Isiah Pacheco. So for me, I look at a 24-year-old running back, a 3rd-year player who's the starting running back for the Kansas City Chiefs, and his backfield competition is CEH, Deneric Prince, a bunch of undrafted free agents. Top 7 in red zone touches last year, despite missing time and the Chiefs offense underperforming. This is not a dead zone running back. He might be going in what was formerly known as the RB dead zone, but this is a guy that should be going, or at least in years past would have been going, in the early to mid 2nd round. And on Underdog, you can get this guy as like your 4th player, sometimes your 5th player on your roster. You could already have a solidified group of wide receivers in home managed leagues. He is outside of the top 30 picks. Again, in managed leagues, you figured people would still be drafting running backs highly, but even they have been swayed to some degree that running back may not be the way anymore. The boomer running back hammer, high testosterone guys are fading into obscurity, and a lot of the nerds are taking over right now. So I look at Isiah Pacheco, I look at a guy who's going off the board as your 4th, your 5th player off the board, and I am absolutely crushing the draft button on him in Underdog drafts right now. Then we look at Travis Etienne, another quote-unquote dead zone running back this year, who's RB9, 43 overall off the board. Again, RB9 was typically drafted in the mid-2nd round just a couple of years ago, even in home leagues going off the board at 29th overall. So again, into the 3rd round we're talking about for Travis Etienne. He was scorching hot last year to start out the year. Weeks 1 to 8, he was averaging over 20 points per game, and the Jaguars' offense crumbled due to injury to Etienne, injury to Trevor Lawrence, injury to Christian Kirk. and it kind of just collapsed altogether down the stretch. The offense should be improved this year. They have some continuity on the offensive line. Trevor Lawrence hopefully will be healthy. Christian Kirk hopefully will be healthy. They have the additions of Brian Thomas Jr., Gabriel Davis, and of course Evan Ingram is still there. I am very bullish on the discount that I'm getting on Travis Etienne right now in Jacksonville and this whole offense, to be honest, because I think they left a sour taste in our mouth, and we forget that they were 8-3 at one point. We forget that before Trevor Lawrence's injury, they were a winning football team, a team that was putting up points. This dude finished as RB7, Travis Etienne, in points per game last year when all of that shit went wrong down the back half of the season, and he is being drafted lower than where he finished last year. And again, think about his profile. Does this sound like a prototypical dead zone running back? He's a young running back still. He's only 25 years old. He's got breakaway speed, 73 targets last year, third in weighted opportunities per game, only 15th in red zone touches, so potentially some regression to the mean there, knowing that the Jags offense could be better this year. When I look at Travis Etienne, I think of a guy that absolutely would have been a late first round, early second rounder 3 years ago in fantasy drafts. I'm not worried about Tank Bigsby. I'm not worried about any competition for touches in this backfield. I'm sure he won't be a 85, 90% opportunity share guy, but he will be the number one guy there in Jacksonville. This is a slam dunk back-end RB1 projection at the minimum, and I still think he has top 3 upside at the position, knowing that if Jacksonville gets really hot, if Trevor Lawrence lives up to the contracts he was just paid, this profile would have easily costed you way, way more for the upside that you're getting and for the easy projection that you're getting of a pass-catching, young running back with breakaway speed who's heavily talented, just had a down efficiency year towards the back half of the season last year. So, other running back I'm absolutely hammering, who's the hate's gone way too far on, who's not a dead zone running back, but is being drafted as one, is Josh Jacobs, who's currently going off the board RB12, 50th overall on Underdog Fantasy, 36th overall in Home League ADP right now. And I realize Josh Jacobs is the oldest running back of this group, so there's a little bit more risk with him because maybe he's not quite the same player he used to be. We saw his efficiency from 2022 taper off into 2023, but part of why I'm quite bullish on Josh Jacobs, and I've been drafting him pretty much in every Underdog draft I'm in, is because he's so much cheaper than he was last year, and his offense, everything has improved about his situation. So I'm not exactly sure why we're looking at Josh Jacobs in Green Bay versus Josh Jacobs in Vegas and deciding that Vegas Josh Jacobs was a late second round, early third round pick, and Packers Josh Jacobs is a fifth rounder, because the projection to me is a lot better this year than it was last year. Josh Jacobs has been a multi-time RB1 finisher in subpar offense after subpar offense in Las Vegas. Last year, he played in an offense that ranked 26th in yards per team play and 23rd in scoring. It's not really a coincidence to me that he had an underperforming year. Efficiency was down and all that kind of stuff. He gets signed by Green Bay on a big money contract in the first day of free agency to clearly be their lead running back of this team. They have tons of young talent on the roster. At wide receiver, they got Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, the 2 tight ends. This team, with Jordan Love at the helm, Matt LaFleur calling the plays, is going to be a good offense. It's going to be a high-scoring team. They're projected to be the 12th highest-scoring offense by ESPN's Mike Clay, and to be honest, that feels a little bit conservative. I think they could be even better than that. The Packers are also one of the most run-heavy teams in the league, and especially in the red zone, they're going to feed Josh Jacobs and their other running backs. And Jacobs, even when he was in Vegas last year, despite being the workhorse for that team, number 1 in opportunity share among all running backs, only was 14th in red zone touches because the offense wasn't good. Total touches are going to go down for Josh Jacobs in Green Bay because Matt LaFleur, the offense, they've been very vocal about using Marshawn Lloyd, using A.J. Dillon, using whatever running backs they have in that backfield. But even if the overall touches go down for Jacobs, the valuable touches, I believe, will go up, including receiving work, including red zone work, including overall efficiency down to down. People get caught up in the semantics of saying, oh, well, they drafted Marshawn Lloyd in round 3. Josh Jacobs won't have his same workload, and he wasn't good on a huge workload last year. Why would he be good on a lesser workload this year? I'm not disagreeing with you that his workload's going to go down. I think it will as well, but I would rather him be the 1A in a great offense than the workhorse in a bad offense like he was last year. The Aaron Jones role that we've seen in Green Bay has produced high-end fantasy RB1 numbers, and don't you think part of why he was inefficient last year in Las Vegas was that he was getting hammered 18 times up the middle over and over again without the offense moving the football. Jordan Love is good. He's going to be able to move the offense, get red zone opportunities. Josh Jacobs is a part of this offense. He's not the whole offense like he was with the Raiders last year. So for me, again, I look at this guy as somebody you can get as like your fifth player. You can draft two great wide receivers, a stud quarterback, an RB1, and have Jacobs as your RB2. That's how low he's going in drafts right now. Even in home leagues, this is a guy that you can get at the early portion of the fourth round, and that's not where he would have been going in years past. You get a starting running back who's been a multi-time RB1 in an offense that projects as good as this one. We would have been taking him in the mid-second round just 3 years ago, and I don't think anybody would have hesitated to do so. But right now, the market has decided that this running back is overvalued. And to be honest, his projection is as pretty clear as it's ever been for Josh Jacobs, the player, and he's been going higher than this in ADP in many recent years before this. So I look at James Cook, who's the last guy that I'm going to talk about here. James Cook, RB15 right now in ADP, 57th overall on Underdog, 42nd overall in home leagues. So again, 5th, 6th rounder on Underdog, 4th, 5th rounder in home leagues. Look at the profile. Third-year running back, 54 targets last year, 1,500 total yards as a second-year player. Now the offense is going to be seeking a lot more playmakers. Stephon Diggs is gone. Gabriel Davis is gone. It is very plausible that James Cook gets a lot more than 54 targets this year. It is very plausible that he would have been a late second round, early third round pick just 3 years ago, no doubt about it. Cook has competition in his backfield. He's got Ray Davis there. Of course, Josh Allen is going to command some red zone work at the quarterback position. But within his range of outcomes is James Cook running hot on big plays, running hot on touchdowns. In this offense, he only had 6 touchdowns last year and just 3.2 targets per game. I would not be shocked at all if he goes up to 5-6 targets per game and scores 10 plus total touchdowns. And he was RB 18 in points per game in PPR. There is absolutely room for him to return on what he did last year, how he closed out the season, and potentially become a back end or a mid RB1 this year in an offense, like I said, that is desperately searching for playmakers. I wouldn't be advocating to draft James Cook in most years, but knowing the discount that you're getting on him, a 15 to 17 point per game projection is absolutely worth the swing in round 5, in round 6. Again, in home leagues, he's even like a mid to late 4th rounder, which I didn't think would be the case, but here we are, man. I really thought with Diggs gone, with Davis gone, people would steam this guy all the way up to the 2-3 turn, and that is not what's happened at all. It's not like you're deciding between James Cook and Chris Olave, or James Cook and Mike Evans. You're deciding between James Cook at running back and at wide receiver. You're picking, Christian Kirk, Tank Dell, some of these guys. It's absolutely absurd to me that you're getting a running back with this type of easy projection. Mid RB1, low end RB1 type of projection on the high end. And even at his floor, I think he can do what he did last year, RB18, RB15-ish in points per game where he's being drafted. He would not be a 5th rounder in most years. We have gone way too far with the hate on running backs. Again, I saw Hayden Winks and a number of other people put out some research saying that because of the running back availability in this range that I'm talking about in round 3, round 4, and round 5, it makes so much sense to go wide receiver in Underdog drafts right now, knowing you can get very good projections at running back in these rounds, and you could fill out your quarterback and tight end core with other players as well. So again, this was a little bit of a macro meets micro type of video because I gave some micro player takes on some guys that I like in this area. I gave some macro advice on why the running back hate has gone too far in both home leagues and especially on Underdog Fantasy. So if you want to take advantage of some of this advice, go get some shares of Isiah Pacheco, of Josh Jacobs, of James Cook, and of Travis Etienne on Underdog. Head on over there, sign up using the promo code FSE, and when you sign up, you'll get $250 in bonus cash, as well as a special pick'em offer to use in a pick'em entry right away. And of course, when you sign up using promo code FSE, you'll get our draft guides for free as a free gift for you. You get our Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide with 50 plus prospects written up, graded, comps, all that good stuff. You'll also get our Dynasty Rookie film breakdowns on the top prospects. Me and Danny sat down, broke down the all 22 of Caleb Williams, of Drake May, of Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, all those type of guys. And on July 1st, you'll get our redraft guide for free when it comes out with our rankings, Superflex, one quarterback, multi-site ADP. So if you're drafting on Sleeper, who are the biggest values. If you're drafting on Underdog, who are the biggest values. all that good stuff, as well as our risk ratings, our truth series that we did last year. Ton of content coming out in that draft guide. And if you're interested in that, like I said, the best way to get our draft guide is to go over to Underdog Fantasy, use the promo code FSE, deposit just $10, and get all of that stuff for free and start getting into some drafts. I believe the puppy is going live today, which are $5 to enter drafts. Great prize pool over there on Underdog Fantasy. So if that interests you, check it out in the link down below in the pinned comment and in the description. But with that being said, peace out. We'll talk to you soon.